Good morning, game makers. Happy Tuesday. Today we're going to do something that I don't think we've done so far, and that's add an enemy that kind of comes at us from a different direction. So if you look here, you can see that I've loaded a new enemy, and that's, I've loaded the sprite for it. And I want you to notice something about how he's oriented. Now, what you should be noticing is that he's facing up. So this enemy is actually going to come from the bottom of the screen, move up the screen, and he's not going to be able to shoot at us, but he is going to be able to surprise us from behind and potentially damage our player. Um, and one of the benefits of this is that the player won't be able to hang out at the bottom of the screen. You'll have to sort of be aware of the enemies can come from all different directions. So I'm going to go ahead and load or create the object and call him obj enemy 4. I did already scale the sprite up, so I've already taken care of that. But there's going to be some things that are going to be a little bit different about this guy. So for the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that when we give him a vertical speed, we, for the first time, I think, correct me if I'm wrong in comments, we're going to give him a negative speed. And I'm going to set this a little bit lower just because he's going to come from behind and it's going to be a little bit of a surprise attack. So the speed's going to be a little bit slower. I might actually even drop this down more. So a negative speed means that he's going to be moving upwards. And when we do our step event, we're not going to be able to parent too much of the behavior here because he's actually going to start at the bottom of the screen, out off the screen, and move up. So when we check the his y variable, and remember y is its up and down location, we're actually going to see if it's less than a certain number. Now remember, 0 is the top of the screen, and if we left it just like this, we might be able to still see half of the plane vanish. We might not see it because of how fast it's moving, but I want to give a little bit of a buffer. So again, these are 40 by 40. So if I said at minus 20, then I definitely know, or minus 21, I definitely know he's off the screen. Now I know I've used 32 a lot, and that's just out of habit, but if he's 21 pixels off the screen, that means he should be completely off, or she. Uh, I shouldn't be gender specific when I talk about our enemies. So we're going to check to see if his Y is actually less than the top of the screen, which is position 0. And if so, then we're going to go ahead and destroy him. So a lot of different things here. We got a player moving up, and then of course, we do want the collision. I guess I could parent this, but it's just probably faster to say that when it collides with the player bullet, it's going to make an instance of explosion 1. And at 0, 0 relative, meaning come from the center of our object, which makes a lot of sense here. And then it's going to destroy the player bullet, so we're going to say apply to the player bullet. And then the last thing we're going to do is have it destroy itself. And again, remember, if it has this purple outline, this action is actually being applied to some other object. So I think our enemy is all set. He's going to move up the screen when he's created. Um, when he's at the top of the screen, off the top, 21 pixels above the position 0, he's going to destroy himself. And then when he collides with the bullet. Now, eventually, we have to make it so that he can collide with the player and damage the player. Otherwise, he doesn't really pose any threat. But that's for a future video. So now we've got to get him in the game. So I'm going to go back to our object control, and I've done a little bit of work here. And I'm going to explain to you what's going on. So the first action, when the alarm in the controller goes off, is it's going to randomize. It's going to create. It's going to shuffle the deck, and then it's going to. I did change this alarm action just a slight bit, just to create a little bit of randomness of when an enemy is spawned. It's going to declare a temporary variable, which remember, a temporary or local variable only lasts for this event. So once this last action happens, this variable is forgotten. Very memory efficient. You should use them whenever possible. Temporary or local variables are a great thing to use when you don't need to remember a value of some variable for very long. Now, you'll notice that I changed the outcome to anywhere from 0 to 4. So it's sort of like a five-sided die. So it could be 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Those are my possible outcomes. And I wanted to increase the likelihood of a basic enemy being generated. So I changed this to less than or equal to 1, which means if I get a 0 or a 1 on this random roll of the die, then I could get basic enemy. And of course, it's going to be generated. Let me see if I can increase our size here just so we can see what's going on. So it's going to be from a random room width, so anywhere from position 0 to all the way to the right, 32 pixels above the screen on the instances layer. It's going to create a basic enemy. So that's going to happen 40% of the time. If this isn't true, if chance is not less than or equal to 0, it's going to move on to the next check. So else, if chance is exactly equal to 2, then it's going to create the yellow simple shooting enemy, enemy 2. And again, room width minus 32. If this isn't true, so if it's not 0, 1, or 2, else, then it's going to see if chance is equal to exactly 3. If it's equal to exactly 3, then it's going to create an enemy 3. And the enemy 3, remember, is the one that shoots the homing bullet. So he's a little bit more powerful in that he has a bullet that will change directions and chase the player a little bit. But now we have one more likely scenario. So remember, we're going to roll anywhere from a 0 to 4. We've checked up until 3. So now there's only one other possibility, and that's rolling a 4. So we don't really need to check. We won't need another if statement, but will need another else. And this else is the last possible possibility, last possible outcome, and that is rolling a 4. And if that's the case, then we want to generate, whoops, got to move that over here. We want to generate our new enemy, enemy 4. Now, where we create him is going to be a little bit different. We can still do random room width, but we want him to come from the bottom of the screen. So we're going to do room height plus. Now remember, the sprite is a 40 by 40 sprite. So at the minimum, if I don't want them to pop into existence, I'm going to have to say at least plus 21. Now my habit wants me to say 32, but I'm not going to do that. So we have a 40% chance of generating an enemy 1. We have a 20% chance of generating either enemy 2, enemy 3, or enemy 4 from the bottom of the screen. And so if you want to see what a code version of that looks like, um, because it uses up a lot of the screen, here we go. We're going to randomize. We're going to reset the alarm from 60 to 60 plus up to another second. We're going to roll, we're going to say temporary variable. So VAR is always how you create a temporary variable. Chance equals random 4. Notice that when you are assigning a value, when you're saying something is equal to something, you use a single equal sign. And when you're testing to see if something equals a value, you actually would use 2 equals. So here is if chance is less than or equal to 1, create an object enemy 1. Else, if chance is equal to exactly 2, instance create the object enemy 2. Else, if chance is exactly equal to 3, do this. And then otherwise, here's your only other possibility, rolling a 4. So we don't need to say if chance is equal to 4, because that's our only other option, create the enemy 4. So that's what that would look like if you're interested in the coding portion. I happen to prefer coding. I find it much easier to read. You do not have to understand a little bit of the syntax and some of the key words and things, but it's sometimes I feel it's a lot easier than looking at all this. You do get kind of a sense for it if you slide this over. You can kind of see it's almost like it's coded over here. Uh, but anyways, let's go ahead and give this game a run and see if I've made any mistakes. And otherwise, we'll enjoy my success. So let's see. So we're going to run the game. And so we generated an enemy 1, which of course is our greatest likelihood. There's enemy 2. Um, haven't seen any enemy 4 yet. Oh, there comes one up the screen, and so that's working just fine. We can kind of play our game a little bit. We haven't seen much of enemy 3 here. Here comes one. So he changes directions. Awesome. I did add when bullet 2 is destroyed, it does make a little bit of an explosion. So we've actually done quite a bit. We have Ooh, just got him. We've added a new enemy. We've had that enemy come from the bottom of the screen and then approach us from behind, which creates a little sense of tension. And I think all good games do that. You never feel quite safe. Otherwise, it might be kind of boring. We added up to 5 different options in this alarm, and we realized that if it's the last possible scenario, you don't have to use an if statement. You don't have to check for the variable because it's our only other possibility. So a lot happened today. We were able to create a new enemy that attacked from a new direction. We made our game even more random and unpredictable, and a lot of good stuff. So hopefully that all made sense to you. If you have any questions, of course, ask either in classroom, and I really prefer that because that way, if you have a question, somebody else probably has the same question. But we're all done creating our normal enemies. We might put a boss in later, but for now, we've got a lot of good things going on in our game, and we've made some good progress. Thanks for watching. Hopefully. You'll remember in particular on the quiz that when we want something to move up the screen, we have to give it a negative vertical speed. And when we want to destroy something that moved from the bottom of the screen, we want to check its Y to make sure that it's less than 0. So that's all new learning and understanding that will definitely be on the quiz on Friday. Thanks for watching.